They always start awkwardly. That's just how it goes. I think they start even before. Okay, but first of all, we'd be remiss not to mention that today is Sayin Tevis. So it's 2 days after Hey Tevis. Hey Tevis, of course, the day of Yehuda Ata. And in 1987, Tavshmem Zayin, so was it January already? It might have been still December 1986. The verdict came down on Hey Tevis that the Svarim that had been in court for such a long time, belonged to Lubavitch, and of course the entire Lubavitch world rejoiced and celebrated. The celebration lasted for 7 days, and it was a joy that had been unparalleled and unmatched, I think, in Chabad history. Maybe when the celebrating that's described when Alter Rebbe was released from prison is described in a similar fashion, but it was just an incredible celebration that it was set off for 7 days. And the Rebbe participated in the celebration, that he spoke every night of that week, which was a rare thing at the time. And on Vav Tevis, so the day after Hey Tevis, the Rebbe mentioned that he will be going to the Oil the following day, Thursday, Zayin Tevis, and that people should write in. It was an auspicious time. It was a special time.
It wasn't delivered today?
No.
Hey Tevis, when was delivered?
Beis Kislev the following year. It was almost a full year later.
So
So,
really was unloading the truck.
yeah, that was almost a year later. Yeah.
What took a year?
I'm sorry?
What took a whole year?
It's-
Was it Ukraine? Where was it?
No, they were being held by the U.S. Marshals in Manhattan. Anyway, so
Always? All time with the Russian muscles? Well, Russia had it.
This is not Russia. This is a different. This is not the Svarim in Russia. It's a different saga.
So which were these?
These are some that were taken out of 770.
Ah.
So the ones that hadn't been sold, that were still in his possession, were seized and locked up, and then they were finally released back to 770 on the following year, basically.
Did they buy it back?
Some that were sold, yeah, that's a whole other story. Anyway, the point is that the Rebbe said that it was a special time, and people should write in. The Rebbe was going to bring it to the Rebbe even said then that two things. Number one, the Rebbe said because there's going to be so many people writing in, we're not going to have a chance to read anything at the oil. So the Rebbe said, I'm just going to be placing it in the oil. So therefore, you can be open and honest and write whatever you want, because it's just between you and the Fridi Rebbe. That's it. Then nobody's going to read it. The Rebbe said that. And the Rebbe also said, in order to expedite the process, when you write a pan, when you submit a note to the Rebbe, so you include money for tzedakah. There's the Meipan, there's the Pidyon Nefesh, and there's the Meipan, the money of the Pidyon that would be included always. So anytime you wrote a note to the Rebbe, you'd always include cash, check, whatever. And that money the Rebbe would deposit in Machne Yisrael, which you could still, when you write your panim, you could still submit money to that same fund, Machne Yisrael, Lubavitch.com. And it would go to the Meipan. It was a special account that it would go into. So the Rebbe said, in order to expedite this process, people should put the note in one envelope and put the money in the other envelopes. Like that, it could be processed a lot quicker. The Rebbe used it. It did whatever
So
it did.
was?
It was a special fund that the Rebbe used.
Yeah,
Machne
and the other
Yisrael.
money.
It was given to the Rebbe's. Given to the Rebbe's Zinyanim. Used it for whatever used it.
Rabbinical function.
Used it for whatever used it.
It wasn't
Anyway.
for the upkeep of the 770.
No, that's a different fund.
So,
So
we didn't have the other
it
foundation
wasn't
there,
there are a bunch of different funds, and the Rebbe would make a magbis would collect for different funds, different times a year. That would money that would go for earmarked for different things, different activities, different functions, different pu'ulas. But the Meipan went to the Lishkas Chashoyim, I think it was in Machne Yisrael, that was a discretionary fund, and that's where the money was. So anyway, so people did that, and the money came in, and the panim came in, and the Rebbe went to the oil on Thursday, on Zayin Tevis. And you can, there's even video, you can see of people still, the amount of bags that were brought, that the Rebbe took with him to the oil, that was unusually more than normal. The whole back seat was full, the trunk was full, and they were still putting letters into the window of the car as the Rebbe was pulling away going to the oil. There was still panim coming in. So panim started pouring in from around the world. People had gone out to the bar park. People were going out and collecting notes from people. People were writing in, and there were all kinds of miracles that were that were happening over the course of that week. It was an incredible time, an incredibly auspicious time. And the following year, Hey Tevis Tavshim Ches, Hey Tevis was on Shabbos, and the Rebbe said then that Hayamim Ha'elin Niskarim V'Nasim, that these days, like it says, the Megillah says, and we apply to all Yom Tovim, that these days are remembered and reoccur. So when we celebrate them, when we observe them, Nasim, they are the events happen again, all over again, and therefore the Rebbe said that this time, Hey Tevis is established for future generations as a Eis Ratzin, a Yom Skula and a Eis Ratzin, auspicious time. That was the whole period. It was Hey Tevis, in connection with Hey Tevis. I'm getting to a point here, which is that Hey Tevis is a time that is an auspicious time and a time of great miracles and blessing and redemption every single year. But today, being today's Zayin Tevis, if we talk about the events of Hey Tevis and the time that it was, so Zayin Tevis was the day that Rebbe actually went to the oil in connection with Hey Tevis. So certainly, if those of us who haven't utilized the time of Hey Tevis yet, you write to the Rebbe and ask for bracha, whatever it is, today is still within that time frame for sure that we can utilize this time, the Yom Skula and the Eis Ratzin, especially this year when in the days leading up to Hey Tevis, there was an actual Pidyon Shvuyim, an actual redemption. That actually moved and inspired the entire the Jewish world, general Haredi world in particular. So actual Pidyon Shvuyim that happened in this time, Mamish Niskarim V'Nasim. So it's a time to utilize and to chaparain. Okay, so now we're in the Maimer Yehuda Ata. We're holding chapter 4. What we said was that we reinterpreted the verse Yehuda Ata Yiducha Achecha, that Yehuda, your brothers will acknowledge you. We explained that doesn't just mean literally your brothers will acknowledge you, they'll bow to you, they submit to Yehuda, and meaning a reference to Yehuda's leadership and kingship. But Yiducha Achecha means that your brothers will bring about, they will reveal this idea of Yehuda. That it's through the brothers that precede you, your older brothers, that we get to the point of Yehuda. So we said, the brothers before Yehuda are Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. And we explained that it's through the Avodah of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi that we come to Yehuda. What does that mean? So we said, Reuven, it represents serving Hashem in a manner of seeing, that you see godliness. When you see godliness, that establishes a certain closeness that you feel to God, and therefore that leads to a love of Hashem. So Reuven is a type of service of Hashem that means Avas Hashem, loving Hashem, and specifically that relates to the first parsha of Shema. When we say Shema, which is derherin, to really that the idea of God's oneness should resonate, and to the point that we see it, and that leads to V'ahavta Hashem Elokecha, it leads to loving Hashem. And then Shimon represents hearing. Hearing implies that there's a distance between you and the thing. You hear something that happened, the implication is that you didn't see the events yourself. So there's a distance between you and the events, and that when there's a distance, when it's something that's far from you, so the relationship or the emotion, the feeling that it fosters is a feeling of awe. Awe comes from distance. You feel how distant you are from God, how great God is, how distant you are. That fosters a feeling of awe. And that is related to the second parsha of Shema, V'hoyim Shemaya. V'hoyim Shemaya, if you hear, meaning that we serve Hashem in a manner of hearing, where we don't see, so there's a that therefore that whole chapter of Shema, that whole second paragraph is couched in terms of warning not to do something, because Ava, love, motivates you to do. So therefore the first parsha of Shema is in a manner of positive, of action, because love leads to action. Fear leads to inaction. It leads to a fear of violating, of breaking something. And you don't want to break something, you don't move, meaning you don't do. So Avas Hashem is the frozen in fear. Very good. So Avas Hashem is the motivation for fulfilling the mitzvahs aseh, the positive mitzvahs. Yiras Hashem, fear of Hashem, is the motivation behind not committing any of the mitzvahs, not violating any of the negative commandments. And then you have Levi. Levi's Yelavi Ishielai Levi represents bonding and connection. What is the bonding and the connection? That is the emes v'yatziv, the bracha that we say after the Shema. We say emes v'yatziv. Emes v'yatziv, what are we talking about that's true and upright and correct, etc.? That is Torah. It's Torah that creates a bonding with the Eibishter, with God. Because mitzvahs imply that there's you and there's God. There's you doing for God. So you can do it in a manner of love and positive action. There's a manner of inaction or not violating commandments. It's another act. But Torah gives us insight into Hashem. And we explained in the last class that Torah, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, there's a yichud nifla she'en kamayu, that Torah establishes a bond with God, a total merging with God that is unparalleled, that you can't find in mitzvahs. That there's a total merging that occurs where we become one with God. So that is through Torah. So you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. When a person has the service of Hashem that is through Ava, which is the side of Chesed. When a person serves Hashem in a manner of Yira, which is Gvura, and through Torah, which is Tiferes, the fusion of both of them, the bonding of both coming together. So then that leads to Yehuda. That leads to Yehuda, to this submission that comes afterwards, to the Shemoneh Esrei. Because Yehuda represents Shemoneh Esrei, as we're going to say now in chapter 4. So let's go. Yehuda Ata yiduchachecha. This then is the meaning of Yehuda Ata. You, your brothers, will acknowledge you, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, that through the service of your brothers, which are the Avodah of Reuven, Shimon, Levi, which we just explained, that are the Beis Parshas, the Krishma of Emes V'Yatziv, the two Parshas of Shema. And then Emes V'Yatziv, Hi'akdama V'Achanal B'chinas Yehuda, they are a preparation, an introduction to the level of Yehuda, which is Ha'avodah, the Shemoneh Esrei, Ha'idaya U'Bittul Kavda Kamimare. That Yehuda is the avodah of Shemoneh. It corresponds in the context of davening. Corresponds to Shemoneh Esrei. Shemoneh Esrei is acknowledgement and submission, which is ka'avda kamimari. Like, as I'll say, the Gemara says ka'avda kamimari, that when we daven Shemoneh Esrei, it's like a servant before his master. That's why when we daven Shemoneh Esrei, we don't move, because you're ka'avda kamimari. It's like a servant before his master. You don't move. You stand in one spot.
What do you do in Shimon?
I'm sorry.
What do you do in Shimon?
We just explained. Reuven is Ava, Shimon is Yira, Levi is the union of Torah, and then that leads to Yehuda, Shemoneh Esrei, the bittul of Shemoneh Esrei.
He was a servant? No.
So Yehuda. So this idea of Shemoneh Esrei represents a total submission to Hashem. Unlike Shema and Emes V'Yatziv, where you don't have that complete bittul, you don't have that complete nullification. And this we could see even halachically. As we know, in halacha, there's a difference between the interruptions that are permissible during Shema, when you're reciting the Shema and davening, and Shemoneh Esrei, that in Shema, the Mishnah says, and it's brought in halacha and Shulchan Aruch, that you're allowed to interrupt to greet somebody or to acknowledge somebody's presence. That is more lax when it comes to Shema, and in Shemoneh Esrei, it's only Pikuach Nefesh that allows you to interrupt. But outside of Pikuach Nefesh, there's no interruption. So we see that when it comes to Shema, I still play a role here. If somebody comes and greets me, I'm allowed to greet back. I'm allowed to respond. There's less. You haven't gotten completely lost. But when it comes to Shema, when it comes to Shemoneh Esrei, there's nothing. There's nothing. It's just total submission to the Eibishter. So Indian says. So this idea. So 1 second. So we have like this. We have serving Hashem through love, serving Hashem through fear, serving Hashem, the connection with Hashem through Torah, and then you have total submission to Hashem. And what have we said here? We've said that in order to get to the total submission, you have to go through the first three levels. You have to get through Shema and V'Hoyim Shemoya and Emes V'Yatziv in order to get to Shemoneh Esrei. But it would seem that you can have total submission and surrender to Hashem without that introduction. So what does it mean? You just do what Hashem wants. You don't consider yourself too important. You don't take yourself too seriously, and you submit to Hashem without. That's right. You just do what He wants. You submit. I want one thing, but Hashem wants the other, so I do what Hashem wants. So what does it mean when we say that in order to get to Yehuda, to that bittul, you have to go through these three things? So the Rebbe says like this: this concept that it's only through the avodah, the service of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, that we can reach and attain this level of Yehuda. It's similar to what is known regarding the three crowns that are discussed in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Keser Torah, Keser Kona, Keser Malchus, Shem Begimal Kav and Torah Avodah Gevinas Chasadim, that the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos that Shleisha Ksarim Hein, there are three crowns. There's the crown of kingship, there's the crown of priesthood, and there's the crown of Torah. And then the Mishnah continues, Keser Shem Tavayil Al Gabeim, the crown of a good name surpasses them all. So first of all, the Rebbe quotes in the brackets here, quotes from Ayin Beis, that Keser Kohuna, Keser Malchus, Keser Torah, Keser Kohuna, Keser Malchus correspond to Torah, Avodah, Gemilas, Chasadim, the three pillars that we referenced before in relation to Reuven, Shimon, Levi. So there's a similarity there. And then the Rebbe says, the Keser Shem Tov She'el Al Gabein, one that goes above. What does it mean that it sits above them? Shehu L'mayla Mehem, that it's above them. That Shebechdei La'agil L'bchinas Keser Shem Tov Al Yidei Gimel Aksarim Eila Al Gabeihen. The Mishnah says there's three crowns: the crown of kingship, the crown of priesthood, and the crown of Torah. And the crown of a good name surpasses them all. So how many crowns are there? So there are 4 crowns. So why does the Mishnah say there are 3? There are 3, and Keser Shem Tov is Eila Al Gabein. It should say there are 4 crowns, and the highest one is Keser Shem Tov. So the Mefarshim asked this question. It's sort of an obvious question. So the Rebbe explains that the 3 crowns, when we say Keser Shem Tov Eila Gabein, also it doesn't say Keser Shem Tov is Eila Al Kulana, or Keser Shem Tov is the highest of them. It says that it's Eila Al Gabein, it sits on top of them. What does it mean that it sits on top of them? That Keser Shem Tov really on its own, this idea of the crown of a good name seems to not be so important. If you contrast the first 3 crowns, kingship, priesthood, and Torah, those are all innate qualities that a person has that reflect on your character. Those are character qualities. A person can reach a level of malchus, of serving Hashem, also malchus shemayim, or of kohuna, meaning that he elevates himself to a level of being totally devoted to Hashem. Torah, he's a Torah scholar. Those are all things that a person works on themselves, personal refinement. They reflect on your character. The crown of a good name, on the other hand, is external. You have your crown of a good name. It's your reputation. Your reputation, true, your actions, your character will lead to dictates whether your reputation is good or bad. But ultimately, your reputation is not in your own hands. And you know there are people that do a lot of good things that are terrible people, and yet they have a very good reputation in the community because of the good things they do. So it's not necessarily a reflection on your own personal character. So what's the meaning that it's Eila Al Gabein? So the word is like this. That's what when we say Keser Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, is Eila Al Gabein, surpasses them all. When is the crown of a good name really a character virtue? When it comes after Keser Malchus and Keser Kohuna, Keser Shem Tov. When a person goes through those first 3 levels, then the Keser Shem Tov is Eila Al Gabein. Then that crown surpasses them all, sits on top of them. In other words, we're saying the same thing here. Yehuda, the idea of submission to Hashem, a person could submit to Hashem without Shema, and without Emes V'Yatzav, without love of Hashem, without fear of Hashem, without studying Torah. You could do what Hashem wants. He wants you to put on tefillin, you put on tefillin. But there, what's happening? And you're doing a mitzvah. There's no question you're fulfilling a mitzvah. The main thing is the act. However, there, what is the quality there? The quality is that the act, the will of Hashem, is being done. But how does it reflect on you? It doesn't. Because the act is totally, you're doing it in a way totally indifferent. Your own self, you're not invested in the act. You're not engaged in the act. You're just doing the act. It seems like
there's no kavanah either?
If there's no love and fear and Torah knowledge. Yeah, sure. So without that, the act is sort of a hollow act. The act it doesn't engage you. It's not a reflection on your character. So there, true, you could do a mitzvah by submitting to Hashem, but the act itself, what happens is you have the act, but the person's engagement, the person's involvement is lacking. It's only through when we get to the submission after we get through Ava, Yira, and Torah that it becomes a whole different thing. There, it already becomes a reflection of the person's character, meaning there's a submission that a person has to Hashem where he doesn't know anything. It's like I don't want to say naive, but it's sort of an immature or non-intelligent submission to Hashem. I submit to Hashem, I have my life, but I'm going to put Hashem before me. That's one type of submission to Hashem. When we say Yehuda Ata Yiducha Achecha, the ultimate form of submission to Hashem doesn't come in spite of me. It comes after that self-actualization, when a person starts serving Hashem, and he has love of Hashem, and he has fear of Hashem, and he learns Torah, so therefore his mind now and his interests become aligned with Hashem's interests. Still, the problem is that it's still me. It's my love of Hashem, it's my fear of Hashem, it's my understanding of Hashem's will. So even though I'm now fully invested, I'm fully engaged, I'm in a sense transformed, but it's still about me. So even then, once you reach that point, you still have to come to Yehuda. After you get through Shema and V'hoyim Shemoya and Emes V'yatziv, you still need to come to Shema and Esrei, where you now submit to Hashem. But here the submission to Hashem is a whole different type of submission. Here the bittul to Hashem, the bittul to God, is not one that's in spite of my existence. It's because of it. My whole experience in serving Hashem now leads to overriding my experience, where I realize that it's not about me.
Then why
that it's beyond me.
So why do you say gimme, gimme, gimme the whole time?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't want to get to Shabbat. We'll talk about it maybe afterwards. Because you're right. Shemay Nesri is all about Bakashas Tzrachav. Okay, good. We'll get to that after. But so that's the point here. That just as we say that Keser Shem Tov is Eila Al Gabei, and in order to get to Keser Shem Tov, it has to be Eila Al Gabei, and the true virtue of Keser Shem Tov, the crown of a good name, is when is the crown of a good name, your reputation? When is it meaningful? When you have a good character. When you have good character, then your reputation is meaningful. So the same idea here. When is the bittul a true bittul? Not when it is something that comes in spite of yourself, but it's when it's something that you lead to that experience, that your experience leads to that bittul, that you recognize that even with all the high levels of spirituality, of godliness that you're climbing to and you're reaching, and with your whole service of Hashem, and you have to still submit to Hashem unconditionally. Right? So there's a negation of self, and then there is a transcendence of self. They're two different things.
Listen, you know what I need. Instead of me asking, give me what you think I need that I should achieve my goals.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, when we start Shemon Esrei, what do we say? Adnai Svasei Tiftach. That's another thing. The idea of Kav the Kamim Mori. We come to Hashem, we can't ask anything. We say, "Open my lips." So what comes out is what Hashem is putting in our lips, in a sense. Okay. Chapter 5. So now that we explained that this idea of Yehuda, you can only get to Yehuda through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. So now the Rebbe wants to address it from the other angle, which is, if you remember right in the beginning of the Maimer, we said that it's through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi that we reveal this level of Yehuda, that a Yid could transcend himself and become totally selfless to serve Hashem. But it's not, doesn't mean, now that we explained that it's only through
sense of gratitude, you mean?
Submission. Gratitude is part of it. Submitting to Hashem, a bittul. So
I'm saying Yehuda means gratitude.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Gratitude and hoidaya and bittul. Bittul meaning also submission. Gratitude also implies a submission. When you're grateful for something, you're implying something that's greater than yourself. So now that we explained that you get to this level of bittul through the first three levels of Reuven and Shimon and Levi, so don't think though that it means that bond with Hashem, that selfless bond with Hashem, is not there. It's always there. It's only that it's revealed in this manner. Chapter 5. The fact that in order to reach this level of Yehuda, you first need to preface it with the service of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, which we explained earlier. This is only in order for this idea of the bittul, the submission to Hashem in the level of the manner of Yehuda, should be revealed, should be manifest. But the truth is that really this type of submission to Hashem is always there. As explained in the Maimer Torah, the Yehuda Meira al Hahiva Vatmidus Kameikocha Yaseiv Kol Hayom. The prefix of a Yud in Hebrew represents constant. Like the pasuk says, Kocha Yaseiv Kol Hayom, and this is what Eiv will do all his days, meaning that it's a constant. It's constant behavior. It's constant. So when you say Yehuda, there's Hoidaya, there's acknowledgement, and then there's Yehuda, meaning that this acknowledgement is constant. It's always happening. This idea that every person has this acknowledgement, the submission to Hashem, is something that's constant. You're going to say that when Yehuda was named Yehuda, so it says Hapam Oides Hashem. Now I'm going to acknowledge Hashem, which implies that before now it wasn't there. So the Mashkosav Hapam Oides Hashem is the fact that we say Hapam, now I'm going to acknowledge Hashem, which implies that it's not always there. That's only with regard to the manifestation, the revelation of it. Mitzad Helam V'Ester Agufin Av Shabamis. Mitzad Helam V'Ester the Hagolos. Av Nefesh Lekishem Kalachet V'Chem Yisrael Shim Hosei Amiti Hitamid Bam Neitay V'Oides Havayehu Etzli B'Tmidus. This idea of acknowledgement of God, the submission to Hashem, the fact that the neshama is completely surrendered to God, is constant. It's always there. When we say that there's a distinction in terms of when you experience it, it's not when it's experienced, but when it's manifest, when you feel it, when it's revealed. Why? Because since we have a body and we have an animal soul that has its own interests, so that conceals the bond that we feel with Hashem, that we experience constantly. And so therefore, it's through the service of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi that we can reveal it. But the truth is always there. V'akdamas ha'aveda b'chinas Reuven, Shimon, and Levi u'b'chnei la'oires ha'ida she'b'pnimis ha'lev she'tiyeh begiloi v'ad she'teitzi polosim ha'koich la'poil mamash b'machshava d'ibra ma'isa in order for it to be manifest in thought, speech, and action. So what we're saying here is that a person naturally is surrendered, is submitted to Hashem. And the truth is that's why, the Rebbe doesn't say that here, but the Rebbe talks about this elsewhere. When a person does a mitzvah, he stops somebody in the street to put on tefillin, and he puts on tefillin, in a sense that's the most beautiful act. Why? Because that's an expression of that ultimate bond with Hashem. But as we explained before, the problem is, it doesn't affect the person on a conscious level. It's a moment that you see that act that the person will do that act because he has a selfless. He's always surrendered to Hashem. He's always submitted to Hashem. But how is that manifest in a way that becomes conscious? That becomes something that influences or affects your entire being. The only way to do that is by working on yourself through Av and Yira, through love and fear of Hashem, through Shema, V'hoim Shemaya, and Emes V'yatzim, through studying Torah, that we come to an appreciation of Hashem, we come to a conscious feeling, an attitude, a relationship with Hashem. Through that we get to Yehuda, which is that selfless bond with Hashem, the one that transcends our experience. So in our experience, we're limited. I can love one way, you can love another way. Everybody feels in a unique way, and it's limited to how much we understand and how much we feel. But when we talk about Yehuda, that transcends that part of self. There already, it's not about the individual, it's about God. But when we get to it through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, when we get to this level, through our love and fear of Hashem, through study of Torah and understanding Hashem's will, when we get to it in that sense, so here already the submission is a whole different type of submission. It's one that affects us everywhere. So that when we're serving Hashem, what are we feeling? We're not feeling our own involvement, we're feeling Hashem's will. So it's already a whole different experience. Okay. So here, on the one hand, we're completely invested, completely engaged, but on the other hand, it's totally beyond us. So that's how we get even the animal soul to be involved. So now that we explain this idea that we get to to get to Yehuda, what does it mean to get to Yehuda? Not that to create this bond with Hashem, because the selfless bond to Hashem, the essential bond to Hashem, is always there. But we're saying that in order to get to it in a conscious level, it's through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. So now the Rebbe continues, chapter 6, to explain that this leads to the rest of the psukim here, the rest of the bracha to Yehuda, where we talk about dominating the enemy. The verse continues in Yaakov's bracha to Yehuda that your hand will be on the neck of your enemies. That through reaching the level of Yehuda, but getting to Yehuda after you've gone through Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Through that, you have your hand on the neck of your enemies, meaning both spiritually and materially. Meaning spiritually, meaning that you dominate your animal soul, that your animal soul no longer offers resistance, which, by the way, if you remember the last mimer we learned, in Ner Chanukah, we were talking about the essential bond with Hashem, the Pach Shemen. So we talked about the fact that when you're dealing with the essence of Hashem, the essence of the Neshama, there's no menagid, there's no opposition to it. Right? There's no opponent to the essence of the neshama. So when we talk about reaching that level of Yehuda, of revealing that essential bond that we have with Hashem, the Haisabam Nita, as we said before, which is the essence of the soul's oneness with Hashem, so automatically what will happen? You're going to that. The animal soul no longer resists, no longer challenges, no longer fights. So there's, as we said, there's the level of Yehuda that you can get to, you can access, you can have Mesiris Nefesh and self-sacrifice without Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, but there you don't dominate your soul. You've access that essence, but it's just an experience. It's not something that's transformative. But when you worked on yourself and then you reach the essence of the soul, as a result of that, so now what happens is your animal soul no longer resists, no longer challenges. That's spiritually, but even physically, even in this world, we can dominate our enemies. Vanquish our enemies. After it says that your hand will be on the neck of your enemies, so it says that it talks about Gur Ar Yehuda, a young lion, a cub, and a lion is Yehuda, and a staff will not, a leader will not depart from Yehuda. We're talking about the monarchy of the house of David, and specifically a reference to David and Shlomo. The Rebbe says, if you look at these psukim, Yaakov Avinu is benching Yehuda, and he says first, Yehuda Ata that in order to reach this level of bittul, of oneness with Hashem, it's through Achecha, that through the Avodah of Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, we get to Yehuda. Then it continues and says, Your hand will be on the neck of your enemy, meaning you'll defeat your enemies. And only afterwards do we get to the idea of the leadership, to the kingship. To Guraya Yehuda and Lo Yas Shevet Mi Yehuda. Meaning that this defeating the enemies already comes before we even experience the redemption. Because Lo Yas Shevet Mi Yehuda is a reference also, in addition to being a reference to David and Shlomo, it's also a reference to Mashiach. Like the Rebbe says, Guraya Lo Yas Shevet Mi Yehuda Koyal David Shlomo Shemizar Yemel HaMashiach. Since they are a reference to David and Shlomo, whose descendant is... their descendant is Mashiach. Shalom Nemar v'kam Shevet mi Yisrael, on whom it says Kam Shevet, the same terminology, a Shevet, the staff of Israel. So that's a reference to Mashiach. As we said in the Haftarah of Parshas Vayigash, that David will be a king over all of them. That's a reference to Mashiach. Do you think we can finish the mimer or no? Can we sneak it in? No. We try? No? Seems managalas here yadcha ba'irifevecha. Shekol eva Yisrael, shekol Yisrael nikrem al shem Yehuda tipel aleim mosav v'fachad. Okay, we'll stop over here. That the point is that through this idea of Yehuda, we get to defeating the enemy, and we defeat the enemy even before the arrival of Mashiach, which will continue in the next class. We'll finish the paragraph.